In a village nestled between rolling hills and a murmuring river, there lived a girl named Ilara, but she wasn't known by her name. The villagers called her the girl who collected broken things. Her small cottage, tucked away at the edge of the woods, was a museum of the discarded and the damaged. A teacup with a hairline crack, a music box that no longer sang, a wooden bird with a snapped wing, these were her treasures. Ilara's own heart felt a bit like the items she collected. A quiet sorrow, a wound she couldn't quite name, had settled within her long ago. She moved through her days like a ghost, her footsteps soft, her voice a near whisper. The world seemed bright and whole for everyone else, a vibrant tapestry she could only observe from the frayed edges. Collecting broken things was her silent rebellion, a way of saying, "I see you. You are not forgotten." One crisp autumn morning, a child from the village, a little boy named Leo, appeared at her door, his face streaked with tears. He clutched the remains of a small, painted carousel horse, its leg shattered. It was his grandfather's last gift. The other children had laughed, calling it junk. But Leo's eyes held a desperate hope. "Can you fix it?" he whispered. Ilara had never tried to fix anything before. She only collected. She looked from the boy's tear-filled eyes to the broken horse, and for the first time she felt a flicker of something other than her own quiet sadness, a sense of purpose. She took the horse, its splintered wood rough against her fingers. "I will try," she said, her voice barely audible. Inside her cottage, surrounded by her collection of beautiful fractures, Ilara began her work. She found the strongest wood glue she could make from tree sap. With trembling hands, she carefully pieced the leg back together. It wasn't just about glue and wood. It was about patience. It was about seeing the potential for wholeness where others saw only ruin. She mixed paints to match the faded colors, her brush strokes steady and sure. As she worked, a strange thing happened. The familiar weight in her own chest seemed to lift ever so slightly. When Leo returned, his gasp of pure joy was like a melody she hadn't heard in years. The horse stood proud, the repaired leg a faint, almost invisible line, a scar that told a story of being loved enough to be mended. That day, something shifted in the village. The story of the mended horse traveled from house to house. Soon others came. An old woman with a cracked porcelain doll from her childhood, a baker with a dented silver locket that wouldn't close, a musician with a flute that had lost its voice. With each item, Ilara poured her focus and care into the task of repair. She learned to solder metal, to restring beads, to stitch torn fabric where repairs weren't hidden but celebrated. Each mended treasure brought a smile, a thank you, a story. The old woman spoke of the sister who had given her the doll. The baker shared the story of the first love who had gifted him the locket. The musician's eyes shone as he played a tune on the restored flute, filling Ilara's cottage with life. She was no longer just observing the village's tapestry. She was weaving herself into it, one golden thread at a time. She discovered a profound truth in her little workshop. In healing the broken things of others, she was tending to the broken parts of herself. The concentration required to fix a delicate clock mechanism quieted the anxious chatter in her mind. The creativity needed to mend a shattered vase taught her that new forms of beauty could emerge from damage. The gratitude she received was a balm on her own invisible wounds. Her cottage, once a quiet sanctuary of sorrow, transformed into a place of hope and gentle miracles. Laughter now echoed where silence once reigned. The collection of broken things didn't shrink. The villagers no longer saw her as the strange girl on the edge of the woods. They saw her as Elara, the heart mender, the keeper of memories. One day the village elder, a man with eyes as old and wise as the forest, brought her a mirror. It was beautifully framed in carved oak, but the glass was shattered into 1,000 pieces. "This," he said, his voice raspy with age, "belonged to my wife. It reflected her smile for 50 years. Now it only reflects the loss." This was Elara's greatest challenge. How could she possibly mend a shattered reflection? For days she sat with the broken mirror, studying the web of cracks. She couldn't make it whole again, not in the way it was before. The past could not be erased. And then she understood. The breaks didn't have to be erased. They could, using a technique she'd perfected. She painstakingly filled each crack with a mixture of silver. When she was finished, the mirror was transformed. It was no longer a shattered reflection of what was, but a beautiful mosaic. The silver lines caught the light, creating a stunning new pattern, a map of the mirror's history. When the elder saw it, he didn't see the loss anymore. He saw the 50 years of smiles held together by lines of light. He saw the beauty not despite the breaks, but because of them. He looked at Elara, and for the first time he saw her not as a mender of objects, but as a source of profound wisdom. That evening, Elara picked up a small, broken-hand mirror of her own, one she had found years ago. It had been her first piece, the one that resonated most deeply with her own fractured sense of self. She had never dared to look into its cracked surface. Now, with a steady hand, she began to fill its cracks with gold. As she worked, she thought of all the stories, all the smiles, all the restored hope that had passed through her hands. She had taken the broken pieces of a community and helped put them, and in doing so, she had found the missing pieces of herself. When the final crack was filled, she polished the surface, and taking a deep breath, lifted it to her face. She saw her own reflection, not shattered, but whole. A mosaic of a girl who had been sad, a girl who had been lonely, but also a girl who was kind, who was patient, who was strong. The golden lines crisscrossing her reflection were not signs of damage, but proof of healing. They were a testament to the fact that we are all a little broken, and that in mending others, we often find the truest way to mend ourselves. Elara, the girl who collected broken things, finally understood. She didn't need to be flawless to be whole. Her scars, like the silver lines in the elder's mirror and the golden lines in her own, were part of her story, and her story was beautiful. From that day on, her cottage door was always open, a beacon of hope, reminding everyone who passed that nothing, and no one is ever too broken to be beautiful again. Thank you for joining us on this journey with Tales of Secret Wisdom. If Elara's story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories that illuminate the magic within the mundane. Until next time, may you find the beauty in your own unique story.